The breaking news of a plane skidding off the runway at LaGuardia Airport in New York City. We have now heard from the FDNY that they are responding to this report. It came in around 11:09, the call to the fire department that this plane had somehow skidded off the runway. We have no reports at this time of injuries or any more specifics about what caused this. But as of right now, John, this is very much a developing story. The FDNY did receive the call about 20 minutes ago. This is still very fresh, and there's still a big question about how many people were on that plane and what exactly transpired here. And this, by the way, is just a cloudy shot of LaGuardia. It's a traffic camera, and we're working to get some photos that actually show the plane vividly off the runway. And yet to be determined exactly where it's sitting at the airport, John.
We have seen one of those photos. We can't bring it to you yet because of licensing and so forth. But there is indeed a plane, it would appear, an MD-80. That's it's a relatively small jetliner. If you've been on them before, they generally have 2 seats on one side, 3 seats on the other, a single aisle. Jetliner normally carries, I don't know, maybe 80 to 100 people. But this MD-80 has apparently skidded off the runway at LaGuardia. If you're not in the New York City area, this particular storm that we're experiencing right now, as is much of the country, is actually far worse than the storm that closed the city back, a month or 6 weeks ago. The storm that caused the transit systems to shut down and so forth. So this MD-80, we don't know whether it was taking off or landing, but my expectation would be that it was landing. It's you have to jam on the brakes, as I said, very, very strongly when you come into LaGuardia, and that may have led this plane to go off the runway, and it appears to have nosed onto either a snowbank or one of the protective barriers that stand at the end of the runway. 29
degrees in New York City, slushy and cold and just sort of a mess, as I'm sure so many of you are also experiencing in your own cities and towns across this country. Again, the fire department responding here, and one of the big questions is as well, John, is that once we can show you exactly which way the plane is situated, if it is a full plane, getting those folks safely off the plane and, back inside is going to be quite an effort. As of right now, according to reports, LaGuardia Airport is closed because of this, which I'm sure you can talk a little bit about, John. You have a lot of planes that are already in the sky looking to land at LaGuardia, and the weather being what it is, that sounds like a little bit of a challenge, to say the least.
Newer airports, Denver, Dallas, generally have parallel runways, and if one runway is shut down, they can still manage to bring in traffic on a parallel runway that might be, a mile or so away. LaGuardia is a very old airport, one of the country's oldest. That's why the runways are so short, and it only has crossing runways. So if the runway that favors the wind is shut down, they don't have any other options. Given the wind today, and I haven't looked at it, but Maria Molina will be along a little while to give us the weather report. Given the wind today, it simply would not be safe to bring in aircraft on the crossing runway.
Since we can't show you the photos just yet, and they're just coming in right now, and we're going to be able to put them up momentarily, we should point out that the plane is not on its side. It looks like the rear wheels are down and the nose is pointing up. So it's not a dramatic crash. We don't want to oversell or over inflate what we're seeing and what you will about to see in a second here. The fire department getting a little bit more information that there it is. Now you can see it. So certainly you don't want to be in a plane that is in this sort of situation, John, but at least it's not tipped over on its side or in a worse situation.
Right. No fire, obviously.
But I want to mention, we are seeing from the fire department that there is concern about a fuel leak. And is that typical, John, that you would get that sort of concern simply because the plane wasn't able to land completely safely here?
Yeah, the fuel on every jet aircraft is stored in the wings. So if the wings had some kind of an impact, it's really tough to tell. It appears that the nose is sitting on some kind of a retaining wall or a berm or a barrier of some kind. You can tell just from the fuzziness of this shot how quickly the snow is coming down. This is obviously some kind of a telephoto lens trying to get an image of that plane through a very dense cloud of snowflakes, frankly. And that's why this is a little bit fuzzy. But this is the Delta MD-80 that apparently was trying to make a landing at LaGuardia Airport within the last hour in New York City. and for whatever reason slid off the runway, and its nose is now up on some kind of a berm.
According to local reports, we're getting the number of the flight 1086, Delta Flight 1086. We're working on from where that was traveling from and the time. Apparently, what we are seeing again, according to local outlets here in New York City, is that the plane is sitting on some sort of a fence that's surrounding the airport. So a little bit more details, a big question about how many people were on this flight and their conditions right now. We know the fire department is responding. Joining us on the phone is DJ Frost, former pilot. And DJ, just your thoughts as you're getting a first look at this plane. What do you think transpired here? What are some of your concerns just seeing the picture?
Well, you know, LaGuardia it definitely is a short runway. We always have to make sure we're right on with our airspeed and our configuration. And you know what? If you don't hit it just right, then yeah, you really do need to go around. Unfortunately, then they might not have had the runway cleared properly, and hopefully that may not have been the case. That they, you know, one end of the runway might have been cleared, the other end of the runway might not have been cleared. Plus, too, when a lot of airplanes are landing, there's a, you know, the tire residue gets on the runway. It gets slippery. It gets wet. I'm sure those pilots did the best they could with the conditions that they were within at that point.
Have you experienced anything similar to that, DJ? And can you talk us through what that feeling is like when you're about to land and then realize, wait, I might not have complete control here just because of the elements?
Sure. Well, at times, yeah, I've had some hydroplaning, and because some of the runway may not be cleared properly, and usually we also get braking reports from the runway conditions, so we can also know that if the braking actions are not good or fair of what we need to do, either we choose to land on the runway or we may have to go to an alternate. We also get reports from the pilots that have landed ahead of us. Those are called pilot reports. So, you know, with all that information, we try and make the best judgment that we can at that time. Sometimes some unforeseen circumstances occur that are, you know, completely out of the control of the pilot that, you know, at that time, maybe a certain amount of ice had fallen in snow.
We understand that this was a flight coming into LaGuardia from Atlanta. We also are told that all of the passengers have been evacuated. I'm sure that there were some very frightened people on board this plane that made this skidding stop to a landing on a berm of some kind around LaGuardia Airport. DJ, the anti-lock brakes were invented for aircraft before they ever became used on automobiles, but sometimes in these conditions, nothing is going to stop you, a multi-ton jetliner hurtling down the runway at more than 100 miles an hour.
Absolutely. I'm sure it was a helpless feeling at that point as they got to the other end of the runway and they found the braking action might not have been too good at that point. And let's applaud the Delta Airlines flight attendants. You know, our flight attendants are in the back there for the safety of all the crew members, and I'm sure they did a great job and utilized all their hard work and training to do this, as well as the pilots do. I mean, sometimes there's some situations that, you know, you just can't practice, and, you know, sometimes unusual things do happen. And, you know, once the full report comes out, we'll have a better understanding of what occurred there today. And thankfully, everybody looks like they're going to be okay and safe and sound.
The FAA, I'm just getting some information from our colleague John Roberts, who says the FAA is saying that LaGuardia is expected to be closed until maybe late into the evening, 7 p.m. New York time tonight. Obviously, it's going to take a while to move this wreckage. I hate to call it wreckage because the jetliner is very much intact, but it is a very wrecked jet. Probably will never fly again, and it appears that it's going to take a while to get it out of its position. So LaGuardia Airport expected to be closed for the rest of the day, DJ. That's going to have repercussions all over the country, really.
Oh, absolutely. You know, they only have 2 runways, and they're pretty short runways. And I wouldn't rule out that the airplane is, you know, a total hull loss. I wouldn't say that at all. They you know, there just might just be a few things that they could fix on that. You know, it might take a little while to get it repaired, but you know what? Delta has some excellent mechanics there, and you know what? They'll definitely take a good look at that airplane and don't be surprised if they do be able to repair it, and it could be back in service.
It
doesn't look like it's in that bad of shape.
I'm reminded of another, a similar accident that was far worse when a plane, I want to say it was an Eastern jetliner, but I'm not absolutely sure, slid off an icy runway at LaGuardia and actually went into the water. There were fatalities in that case. This one, again, no fatalities. Everybody has gotten off the plane, we are told. So this one ended about as well as it could have for what it is, DJ.
Oh, absolutely. And once again, let's applaud the flight crew and the cabin crew for the excellent job that they did. It's an unusual situation, and once the report comes out, we'll definitely find out what happened. And you know what? You just don't know sometimes what's going to happen in these conditions, in these icy conditions.
And for all those for all those travelers who wonder why they have to keep the seatbelt on until the plane comes to a complete stop, this is a pretty good reminder as to why they enforce those rules, right?
Absolutely, and that's why everybody should put their phone down, put their paper down, and listen to the flight attendants as they give their safety briefing.